Hey guys, in this episode we will explain how we manage dependencies with the template package. Okay, so first thing that we will want to do is to create some of the main classes that will allow us to do so. So the first and most important one is our dependency module. So in our dependency module we will basically need to create one class which is basically called dependency module. Okay, and it will extend the base dependency module. This is a class in our template package. Now when I create this dependency module, we basically need to return a list of dependency submodules. Okay, so I have sub for blocks, for services, and we'll have different types, maybe for the core objects. That might be some kind of HTTP or some kind of plugin that you want to keep in the core submodule, just to keep track and to make sure that when you mock them in your tests, they are all of them are there. And you have different types of submodules you will have here, but let's create the first one for the blocks. So I already have this one I have created, and you can see when, let's go from the beginning. So first thing what you will do, you will create a class and you will give a name. Okay, and you will extend the ISO module. This ISO module method will give us a method which basically it will allow us to initialize some specific things here, which I will show you later. Basically you will have access to all the other submodules in your app, and then you can use their dependencies to build the blocks that you want to build. And here we want to get our block, which is one of the blocks that we have for our features here. It's like the second block. It's a very simple one, right? So we have this block, and then we give a name. It's going to be a method that basically creates our second block. Okay, so we see that this second block wants some data. In this case, like this data will be coming from somewhere outside of our dependencies, so will be something like that. We can put it in as a parameter and then pass it down. Okay, so now that we have this, we have our first submodule, and if we go back in our module, we can actually create our block submodule and just import it. Okay, so once imported is here. Now one important thing that we want to have in order to get this dependency down the tree of our widgets, we want to have another widget which is called the inherited widget, and we'll give a name to the class the dprovider. And the reason giving this name is like stands for dependency provider, and it will provide us with the modules and so the dependency inside the submodules. Okay, so for example we have here a method that gives us access to the block submodule. Okay, and the way we have access to this block submodule is basically we are going through the all submodules that are passed inside the constructor of this dprovider, and then we access it by finding it by the type. Okay, so say all the lists were type of block submodule, and then we get the first one. We'll make sure we don't have different more than one type like so, because otherwise you have an error. Okay, so once you have created this code, now we are ready to go and go into the main. Okay, so have track of this class, go in the main, and the first thing we will do is create our dependency module. So final dependency module equal. Okay, so this is our dependency module. Now we want to have our app wrapped by our dependency provider. Okay, so say the provider, and instead of passing the app down there, we will have our app here. Okay, we'll pass the app here, and we will want to pass the dependencies from this dependency module, and we'll say get ready submodules. Okay, and now by doing this, inside our app we will be able to actually get to the provider by using the context, and then this provider will give us the submodules and all the dependencies for our application. So we can do that by going in our page, and let's say we are here and we want to have a dependency, but we will not use this way, but I want to show you still how do we do that. So let's say we want to have a block. Okay, second block, I say the provider. Okay, and the way I do that, I'm saying dot of context, and then I say block submodule and say second block, and here I can pass my data, right? So we'll run this and we'll verify that we're actually creating and we're getting the block that we want. We'll run this and see. So when the home page is initialized and the build method is called, we want to have this block ready there. So guys, this is only a test right now, just to show you that we can actually access that by calling this method. Okay, let's wait a bit when it's launching. Okay, so let's see what we have here. Right, so we have our second block, and inside the second block we have the variable second sum data, right? So we can go see here. You see we don't have even the type, and which is a good thing. So this is our block, and this we have initialized. Okay, so this is to show you that we can actually get the dependency without actually calling our second block like this, because we don't want to use constructing. We don't want to construct things everywhere in the app. We want to only have one place. Okay, now that this is clear, I hope for all of you, we will go and see where we are going to now to use this dependency provider, and the most used place will be when we navigate to new pages. So you should be already familiar with this page. I have explained it in the part 2, and as you can see, we basically are creating a block here directly, and we are passing it to our second page. So ideally we should want to have our D provider. Okay, this, and I'll have access by context, and the context is nothing by this. Okay, and now I would say block submodule dot second block, and here is this some data. You see, the great advantage of this type of the dependency injection is that we can get our block or any type of dependency, and by creating it we can still pass some data, which we use some data, and we use to pass it directly in the constructor. So when the block is created or any type of dependency is created, we are passing specific things to it, okay, directly. We don't need to do more we don't need to write more code in this, so each time you'll be like so easy. Dependency provider, and you get the data. Okay, now that we had this this part, we can go and have an example of another thing. So we want to create another type of submodule. So let's copy and paste this, and we'll say service. Let's change the name. And this service module will basically need to return us some kind of services, right? So in that case, we want to have our service class somewhere. So services are usually used by the entire application, okay? Is something that is shared across the application, okay? So I will have something called directory for it, which will be called core, okay? So inside the core we have a services, other directory, which will say services, okay? And here we can actually have our first service, and say dart, let's say service will be like get users, right? So we'll say user serve. So here we'll get the service, the users, for example. In this case, we'll have a class, say user service extends. If you have to extend something or not is up to you. I want to give you only a simple example on how we will use this in the submodule. So let's say this returns a list of users. For now we'll say that is users will be user names, okay? And let's say this is actually returning something, okay? And let's return some usernames, John, okay. Let's say this service is calling some kind of API, keep it as thing, and actually returns us some kind of data, right? And in this case we will want to go in our service module, and we want to provide this in a method so it can be accessed, okay? So what's gonna happen now, what we have now is basically when we go here, and let's say that this block wants to use a service. Let's say you have like a different way of building it, to have like use case, then use case to communicate to a repository, depending on how you structure your application. But I want to show you as an example the block communicating to a service, for example, okay? So we have our user service, and the user service will be in our constructor passed here, and maybe will be used here. So let's do it this way. Final user list username. Okay, and I need to await, and here we'll put async. Okay, now we have some data here, and we'll try to print it out like this. Okay, so how do we do about this? How do we go about this? You see here, now this block says, oh, I need something else, and which is a service. Now we are not gonna pass the service here, right? But we will basically need to have the service already in here. So what will we do? Because we want to have a submodule here, we'll say like service submodule, okay, and say service submodule, and this is gonna be a late, and we initialize this here. And the way I did it before was this. So I'll have access to our submodules, which are this, and then I will find the single one which is the same type as the one I need. Okay, so this service submodule, we have now access to service submodule, because this init is called the first thing when the app starts. Okay, so we'll have this access to this one. So we know that the service submodules now has our service. Okay, so it's a user service, and that's it. Now when this second block is created here, we can pass our data, which can be more than one variable if we want to change, but the service will be passed by our submodule here. So there is no other requirement to do. Okay, and we want to actually test this and see if our services are being passed through the constructor, and if the data is actually displayed. So we'll go to next. We have an error. Let's see what is that. Single where. Okay, so it's looking for this, right? Yeah, we missed one important thing, guys. So see this, service module can't be found, so that's the reason that why we need to go, and we don't need to forget to add it here each time that we create a new submodule. These create submodules are called just in the beginning when the app is initialized, so we need to have all the submodules there. Okay, so let's actually go test next page, and let's see what we receive. And here we go, we have basically our service being called when we go to the next page, in the second page, and we have a list of our usernames right here. When we go to the second block, we are passing the service, we call a method on the service, and then we use that to update our UI. Okay, it's that simple. For this episode is all. Thank you guys, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next part.